Okay, as everybody's joining us, I just want to say hello, good afternoon, good morning. I'm Natalie Solden with the Communications Office for the Office of Science. Welcome. Welcome to the Office of Science's informational webinar, as you can see on your screen right now, for biological and environmental research, reaching a new energy sciences workforce, ReNew, funding opportunity announcement. Before we begin, I have a few logistics to go over. As you noticed when you joined, we are recording this meeting. This recording will be available along with the slides next week to the Office of Science's website, and I'll share that link in chat in a little bit. There are closed captions available. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen. You can click on the button to enable them. After the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask your question. With that, and as everybody's still joining us, I'd like to introduce Gary Kienert, Earth and Environmental Systems Sciences Division Director with the Office of Biological and Environmental Research. Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Natalie. So good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast, and I'm supposing good morning to everybody else. This is, as Natalie just mentioned, this is a webinar for the RenewFOA. I might add that this is the second time we've issued this FOA. We issued it last year. There's one big fundamental difference between last year and this year, and that is that it's opened up to all of the portfolios within BER, which means it includes biology, environment, and climate. So it's much broader, so we're very excited about that. And what also makes this RenewFOA unique, at least in the kinds of things we do in BER, is that we're opening it up to, let's say, more institutions than we historically have had in our investments. So we're quite excited. Moving forward, we have 4 speakers for today that are going to be going through these slides. The first is going to be Brian Benscotter. They'll be followed by Dawn Adine. And it's kind of ironic. Brian is from the climate side. Dawn is from the biology side. Then we'll switch back to Shaima on the climate side, and then wrap up with Shing on the biology side. And I wanted to point out one other person that's online, and that's Mike Zarkin. He is a resident expert on all of the processes in, let's say, following up with solicitations, how we do business within Office of Science. So he is online to answer questions. And before I pass it off to Brian, I'm going to encourage you to don't hold back in asking questions. Put them in the chat, and we will get to those after we get through these slides. So at this stage, I'm going to pass the baton to Brian, and we'll get on with the show. And thanks, everybody, for joining.
Oh, thanks, Gary. Next slide, please. So as Gary mentioned, we're here to talk about the BER RenewFOA, and this is the second time that we've issued a BER RenewFOA. But please keep in mind that Renew is an Office of Science-wide initiative across all the programs within the Office of Science. This is our second year doing it, and this year we have 7 individual funding opportunity announcements that were all released on the same day. And the intent across all, the overarching intent across all of them is to build these foundations for training opportunities, particularly for students and institutions historically underrepresented in the SC research portfolio, as well as the broader science and technology workforce. As this is the second year of the solicitation, you can visit the website linked here and see lists of the awards that were made from the prior year's solicitation to get a feel for the types of projects that were supported through the first version of Renew. Next slide. So we are within the DOE Office of Science, which is led by Dr. Azmaret Asfaw Berhe. She is the director of the Office of Science. And within their BER, Biological Environmental Research, we'll try to be merciful with the acronyms, is one of 7 program offices, all of which have RenewFOAs And if you are thinking of applying to more than one of those FOAs, please keep in mind that the requirements may differ among FOAs, so please be sure to review the specific solicitation for the specific requirements. Within biological and environmental research, we have two divisions. We have the Biological System Science Division and the Earth and Environmental System Sciences Division. Next slide. The overarching goal of BER is to understand complex biological, earth, and environmental systems. And this ranges across a wide range of scales as well as disciplines, from genomic sciences all the way up through understanding Earth, global scale Earth system processes and all the interactions in between. To enable this level of innovation and discovery, we support research through our two divisions, as well as support for some complementary scientific user facilities that you'll hear about a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So I'll talk first about the Earth and Environmental System Sciences Division, or EESSD, which is led by Gary Gierenart. And within EESSD, we have four programmatic areas that have somewhat self-explanatory names to them. We have the Atmospheric System Research, our ASR program, which studies cloud, aerosol, atmospheric processes, and has a strong articulation with one of our supported scientific user facilities, the Atmospheric Radiation Measurement, or ARM user facility. We have the Earth and Environmental Systems Modeling program area, which works on climate development, climate model development, evaluation, and advancement, including the development of our flagship energy exascale Earth system model, or E3SM. And then the Environmental System Science program area focuses on terrestrial ecosystem and watershed science processes. And also has a direct link with the Environmental Molecular Sciences Laboratory, or EMSL, scientific user facility. And somewhat of a horizontal and echoing the open science and open data philosophy within BER is our data management for Earth and Environmental Sciences program area, which supports some data repository type activities, among other things, such as the ESS Dive and Earth System Grid Federation, or ESGF. Next slide, please. And I will turn over to Dawn.
Thanks, Brian. So again, my name is Donna Dean, and I'm going to start my part of the presentation today talking about the Biological System Sciences Division, or BSSD. BSSD is focused on supporting basic research and tech development to achieve a predictive systems-level understanding of microbes and plants, to develop innovative solutions in bioenergy and bioproduction, as well as enhance our understanding of natural DOE user or DOE relevant environmental processes. So we do this by supporting research in genomic sciences, which encompasses projects around bioenergy, biosystem design, which is also can be known as synthetic biology research, environmental microbiology, and computational biology. We also support projects in bioimaging research, as well as providing capabilities at the Department of Energy's synchrotron light and neutron sources for structural biology research. And we provide resources in cryo-EM. To support the research funded within the portfolio, as well as the broader scientific community, BSSD manages the Joint Genome Institute, or JGI. We also support the Systems Biology Knowledge Base, or KBase, which is a cyber infrastructure for biology analyses to facilitate modeling and design. And we support the National Microbiome Data Collaborative, also known as NMDC, whose goal is to make microbiome data easily accessible and usable through a user-friendly, expertly curated integrated system. Next slide, please. As both Brian and I stated, BER supports user facilities, which are shared, freely available resources for the scientific community. For BER, we support the Atmospheric Radiation Measurement User Facility that Brian mentioned as ARM, which is a premier ground-based observations facility advancing atmospheric and climate research with data sets that are freely available to the community. EMSL, or the Environmental Molecular Sciences Laboratory, which provides capabilities using a suite of state-of-the-art tools to enable molecular scale, experimental, and predictive modeling research for a variety of BER relevant areas. And finally, the Joint Genome Institute, or JGI, which is meeting the DNA sequencing and next-generation genomic analyses needs of the bioenergy, carbon cycle, and biogeochemical science communities. Great, next slide, please. So how do we support research in BER? Well, we provide funding to academic institutions through research grants like the ones that we'll be awarding through this funding opportunity. We also support large multidisciplinary centers on specific topics, such as the Bioenergy Research Centers, which I'll give a little bit more of information later. We also support research at the Department of Energy's National Laboratories through both long-term and time-limited projects. For this FOA in particular, the focus is on developing collaborations at DOE National Laboratories and the Bioenergy Research Centers. So I'm going to give you a little bit more background on those two areas. Next slide, please. So research supported at the Department of Energy's national labs are usually team-oriented collaborative programs that take advantage of the truly unique capabilities that our national labs have. BER supports research through longer-term research investments, such as we call our science focus areas, as well as next-generation environmental experiments, or NGEs. These longer-term investments are really helpful in maintaining a constant amount of science and funding for particular topic areas of interest to BER in BER's mission. Now, we also support short-term projects with a focus on specific targeted research projects of interest in the short term. These lab activities are highly collaborative and afford lots of opportunities to partner and give oftentimes a lot of access to field lab and modeling capabilities that are available through the labs. Next slide, please. I next want to just briefly discuss BER's Bioenergy Research Centers, or again, BRCs. We do love our acronyms, which are large-scale multidisciplinary research centers that are focused on research areas that are critical to improving production of biofuels and bioproducts from renewable biomass. BER supports 4 BRCs, which are listed here: the Great Lakes Bioenergy Research Center, or GLBRC, the Center for Bioenergy and Innovation, CBI, the Joint Bioenergy Institute, JBay, and then the Center for Advanced Bioenergy and Bioproducts Innovation, or CADI. Each BRC covers a wide range of topics needed to realize the potential that renewable biomass offers to us to develop a thriving bioeconomy. Next slide, please. And finally, I wanted to share this slide, which honestly serves 2 different purposes. One is that this gives you sort of an overlook at where all of the DOE National Laboratories and the Bioenergy Research Centers are located across the United States. It's also to provide a little bit of a cheat sheet. As you can hear, Brian and I both said that we use lots and lots of acronyms in overall, and within DOE as well as the general, I think, federal government, we like our acronyms. So this has the acronyms for many of the laboratories that BER currently has active funding with, and also as well as our bioenergy centers, or BRCs. And this will be part of the packets. You'll be able to hopefully use it as your cheat sheet going forward. And so now I'm going to hand things over to my colleague Shaima Nasari to delve into the BER RenewFOA. So next slide.
Hello, I'm Shaima. I think these are the details that you've been waiting for. Let's go on to the next slide. So here's some specifics about the BER Renew funding opportunity announcement. Really, our goal with this funding opportunity announcement is to reduce barriers to engagement in BER research and provide opportunities for student training. And we feel that this can be done by fostering partnerships and collaborations with BER-relevant research at the DOE National Laboratories and the Bioenergy Research Centers. And I want to also point out that all of the information that we are providing in these FOA slides is in the FOA. We will provide the slides, but also it's right there in the FOA. So if we go on to the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about really the focus here is on experiential training and mentoring through collaboration. We expect that applications will cite specific interest in developing experiential training, student mentoring, and institutional capabilities through research-focused collaborations with the national laboratories and bioenergy research centers. Therefore, collaboration with one or more DOE national labs and/or bioenergy research centers is required in putting together an application to this funding opportunity announcement. However, additional collaborations with other BER activities are allowed. Applications should describe the opportunities for experiential training of students associated with PI-led research activities that integrate with and/or leverage the collaboration, as well as the institution's specific proposed role through the collaboration. If we go on to the next slide, I can say a little bit more about our expectations for the student training and mentoring. We expect that training activities will complement and enhance traditional classroom learning, help students develop skills across the full range of the scientific process, sustained training, provide sustained training and mentorship, both at the home institution and through the collaboration, and make considerations for barriers to student participation. For example, considering travel constraints that student might face, other obligations, financial considerations, and those training activities should not be limited to just an assistant or routine task role or to an intensive but short duration exercise. We expect that applications will describe a mutually beneficial partnership between the institution and the collaborating National Laboratory Activity or Bioenergy Research Center, with meaningful engagement of all partners in the mentorship, training, and research activities. Application should, address potential barriers and paths to overcoming them. Hopefully will provide a foundation for collaboration beyond the duration of the award. And a BER will consider the scientific merit of the proposed activities, potential for future engagement with BER research and activities, and of course, the potential benefit of the Renew Award to the applicant. The next slide. So, of course, then we need to mention the eligibility for applications and also for the collaborations. So eligible institutions for this funding opportunity announcement are historically Black colleges and universities and non-R1 minority serving institutions. And we have more information about this and how to determine if your institution is included in this list in section 3 of the funding opportunity announcement. As we've mentioned, collaboration between the applicant institution and at least one DOE National Laboratory and/or Bioenergy Research Center is required. And applicants can contact the National Laboratory and/or Bioenergy Research Center point of contact to explore partnership opportunities for BER-relevant research. And we've provided a list of National Lab and BRC points of contact on the funding opportunities page. And we also have a direct link that will be available right through these slides once they're posted. This collaboration should be developed sort of prior to submitting the pre-application, and a letter of collaboration from the National Lab or Bioenergy Research Center must be provided as part of the pre-application. In addition, the only allowed collaborations are between the applicant institution and the partnering DOE National Labs and/or Bioenergy Research Centers. To enable that collaboration, funds can be requested for the National Lab and/or Bioenergy Research Centers up to 10% of the total award budget. And next slide. At this point, I hand things over to my colleague, Xin Kwok. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Xin Kwok, Program Manager with the Biological System Sciences Division. Just wanted to, the next couple of slides, go over some of sort of the requirements and the reminders of the application process. So the total funding that we have for this year, fiscal year 23 for Renew is about $6 million. Period of performance for these awards is going to be 3 years with a minimum of $300,000 and total award size to up to $800,000. The approximate number of awards we plan to make based on this is around 7 to 9 awards. And we anticipate on making our selections and announcements sometime in September 2023. So if you can go to the next slide. So just a reminder that the pre-application deadline is February 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern time. A pre-application is required prior to you submitting even a full application. Remember, the pre-application must be submitted through the DOE Portfolio Analysis Management System, also called PAMS. And you guys need to submit these through your sponsored research program office. As a reminder, you need to have a letter of collaboration from the National Lab or the Bioenergy Research Centers when you're submitting this pre-application. And there's a limit to the number of pre-application that can be submitted. There's one pre-application can be submitted per PI, and 3 pre-applications are permitted for submission by an institution. We'll review those pre-application for fit to our programs to renew, and we will provide a response of encourage or discourage by March 8th by 5 p.m. via PAMS of whether we would encourage you to submit a full proposal. If you get a decision of encourage, you're required to be eligible for submission of a full application. The application deadline is April 25th and slightly different time. It's 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Now, the submission of the full proposal is actually through grants.gov and not PAM. So keep that in mind. The pre-application is through PAMS. The proposals, the full proposals, if you're encouraged, are through grants.gov. And those submissions, the full proposal, must also be submitted to your sponsored research program office. Once again, there's a limit of 1 application, full application per PI, and 3 application per institution. Next slide. Now, the other thing that's needed as part of the package from the FOA is an inclusion of Appendix 5 here, which is called the Pur Plan. This is a plan that's promoting inclusive and equity in research. And it's a plan to hopefully describe activities and strategies to promote equity inclusion as part of the research project. You should, in this plan, describe a way to foster positive, inclusive professional training and research environment, and not simply stating what your institution policies are. There's a limit to this plan, which is approximately 3 pages, but it does not count towards the narrative page limit that's outlined in the funding opportunity announcement. For more details, you should probably go to this link that we have listed in the slide to get more details about what to include in the Pur Plan or what it requires. Next slide. So when the applications come in, what the applications will get is a full merit review. The applications will be subject to a scientific peer review through a group of peers that have expertise both in the science as well as experiential training. The reviewers will evaluate the application based on several merit criteria. You could see those in page 32 to 33 of the FOA. It lists what those criteria are. Following the merit review, there's also a program policy factor that's listed on page 34 that we in the program office may consider when we make selections for awards. Those may include the diversity of science and how it supports our programs and the Office of Sciences programs. You're encouraged, very encouraged, to review the merit review criteria and the program policy factors when you're developing your application and your proposal to make sure that you're including important factors that are involved. So next slide. Because there's a limitation in the submission of the numbers between PIs and also the institution, the PI application must be submitted to PAMS via submit to DOE privilege account. And this is with the sponsor program office at your institution. And I would strongly suggest that your institution or yourself go into PAMS and make sure your account is active. There are many people that have forgotten their passwords, or if they had an old account, haven't been there in a while, and you want to get those resolved before submitting, because sometimes it might take a little bit of finessing the system to get it to work right for you. The other is to make sure all your information, your contact information is correct. A lot of people have changed their emails and stuff. Just to make sure you get that all cleared away. And I would suggest you get that cleared away maybe after you get off listening to us just to make sure you get all the technical problems solved. And when you have technical problems with PAMs or even grants.gov, there's a help desk that's available. I would suggest you contact them for the technical components of logging in or having issues, because we, as program managers and on the program side, don't have access to fix those issues such as passwords and forgotten passwords. Just to let you know. And the PAM's help desk for the pre-application closes, I think Monday to Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. Okay. Next slide. I guess I'm going to turn this back to Shaima.
You are welcome to. I think that we just want to encourage all of you to make sure that your institutions, especially if they haven't applied to DOE before or recently, to register in all of the required systems as soon as possible. That includes grants.gov, that includes SAM.gov, FedConnect. FedConnect's really important if we do move forward with a funding recommendation on your application, because that's the system that all of the award documents would go to. As Shing mentioned, in PAMs, and any other applicable systems, there's a list of all of them in the FOA. All right, next slide. This is a slide about some links to more information. It's going to be more useful to you after this presentation. It's also available in the FOA. Next slide. And then we'd like to take the opportunity to answer your questions and answers. We already see some in the Zoom. I will get to those in just a second, but I did want to say that if your question isn't answered today, or if you have any additional questions about the FOA topic, please contact the program managers. If you are looking more on the biological side, please contact Donna Dean and Shane Kwok. If your questions are more on the Earth, Environmental Systems, Sciences, Climate side, please contact Brian Benscoter and myself. And I encourage you to send an email to both of the program managers in your area, or if it's something broader, to all four of us. It just helps ensure that someone, whoever has it, that your question can be answered as soon as possible. All right, and so we have some questions in the Q&A, and I will start with those. We've had two questions about whether there are limitations for the national labs and bioenergy research centers as to how many proposals they can be involved in. There are no limitations as to how many proposals the national labs or the projects that the national labs or the BRCs can be involved in. However, I do encourage you to reach out to potential collaborators sooner rather than later, because it may take them a little bit of time to determine how many resources they have, whether they're going to be able to move forward with it. So, but yes, I do want to stress that they are not limited to participating in a certain number of applications. We have another question that is asking about a university that is an emerging HSI, but is currently in the process of obtaining the status. Are they eligible for the opportunity? And I'm going to ask Mike Zarkin if he could answer that question either verbally or type an answer through the chat.
With pleasure, Shaima. If your institution has currently been recognized by the Department of Education as a Hispanic serving institution, as being eligible to apply for any of the HSI related grant programs from the Education Department, then you are a minority serving institution as far as DOE is concerned. We're going to rely on the designations made by the Department of Education. They're the experts in tracking student enrollment to determine when you become minority serving. In terms of if the question was about being an emerging research institution, as defined under the new CHIPS and Science Act, that designation has no bearing on an institution's eligibility to apply under the RenewFOA, although that is a central part of the interrelated FAIR initiative. But for Renew, it is your status as minority serving that matters.
All right, and we have another question about the budget distribution between the Institute and DOE. And I'm guessing you mean between the DOE laboratories, and for this funding opportunity announcement for BERs, the National Laboratory or BRC partner is limited to no more than 10% of the total budget. We have a question stating that the funding opportunity announcement highlights training, mentorship, and learning experience. However, the review criteria seems to prioritize scientific merit. Can we comment on which one is more important? I would encourage you to look at the food for thought questions under each of the merit review criteria, as well as, and I think that will help clarify how you can write a strong proposal focused on training, mentorship, and the learning experience, and still meet the standard DOE scientific merit review criteria. So if you have any specific questions about that after going through and taking a look at those, please feel free to send us an email and we can respond more clearly. And for those of you who haven't looked at the FOA in detail, there are 5 topic areas in the merit review criteria set. Each of those topic areas has some food for thought questions that will help provide framing for how those criteria will be reviewed. And then we've got some questions about allowable and recommended costs in the budgets. We do have a section in the funding opportunity announcement introduction area that talks about some costs and recommendations, as well as costs that are not allowed. There's a lot of flexibility there. I encourage you to work with your sponsored research office and to ensure that any costs that you are proposing to include in your budget are allowed by your institution. And if you have specific questions on that, I do encourage you to send a question to the program managers, and we will find an answer to it. All right, and again, a question about whether funding can be used to support post-bac candidates. I don't, there's nothing that disallows that request. I think that just make sure that it fits within the narrative of your proposal and explain why. Then we have a question on, do we have to focus on genome level understanding of plants or microbioorganisms in this? How about microbes to produce renewable fuels? I'd like to punt that question to either Dawn or Xing.
Sure, I'll start, and then Xing, if I missed something, feel free to jump in. So obviously BER and BSSDs specifically, our interest is in sort of that genome level understanding of plants and microbes, as well as utilizing microbes and plants to produce renewable fuels. Those topics would potentially be helpful and would be something that we would be interested in supporting. Obviously, the DOE National Laboratories have a broad portfolio in those areas, and so there's lots of opportunity for collaboration with those particular topic areas. Xing, is there anything else we need to include there?
No, I mean, it's covered.
Great.
All right. The next question. The FOA mentions preparing a workforce of students. And I think does this mean that applicants are required to prepare students only for future jobs at a DOE national lab or any jobs related to BER science areas? And the answer to that is we're looking broadly at workforce development in, I would say, BER relevant science areas, and we're broadly for the Office of Science. So it is not just for preparing students only for future jobs at a national laboratory, more to give them an opportunity to better understand the range of opportunities that are out there. And if an institution has received previous BER funding, is that institution going to be given a lower priority for this funding opportunity announcement? I would say that that's not a question that we can directly answer. It's really going to depend on the scientific merit of the proposal and all of the program policy factors, and that's the most that I can say there. Are TCUs, tribal colleges, eligible? My understanding is that these qualify as minority serving institutions, so absolutely we would love to see applications from tribal colleges and universities. Can international students and non-US citizens or faculty participate in national laboratory activities? In general, the answer to that is yes. Different laboratories may have different requirements for getting access and things like that. But in general, our DOE scientific workforce is a mixture of people from diverse backgrounds and national origins, and we do not have any limitations in applying for this FOA on citizenship. Another question, if the DOE partner is in a high cost of living area, can we include a housing supplement in addition to the stipend for students who spend significant time in the location? Absolutely. I think that definitely we are encouraging you with this FOA to consider any barriers for participation in the program that students might face. And so whatever, yes, absolutely. Think about the experience that they're going to have and how it can be most worthwhile for them. And I have a question about, I'm not sure how to answer this one. I will drop a note. We have any other questions in the chat? Can Renew support overlap with Suli? So Suli, for those of you who don't know, is an Office of Science undergraduate laboratory internship program offered through the Workforce Development and Teacher Support, WDTS, I forget what the S is, a program within Office of Science. And there's no reason why Renew support could not overlap with Suli. Do we have any other questions? We can give you a few minutes to think about it. And for any of you who have asked questions, and if we didn't provide a complete enough answer, please feel free to follow up or send us an email. All right, we have a few more questions. So can a postdoc be co-PI or PI? That is going to depend on your institution's policies and whether it is most appropriate for the research, for the proposal. We don't have any issues with that, but some institutions may. Dawn or Xing, there's a question about using a biocatalyst. Would you mind taking that?
Sure. So for biocatalysis or pieces that are more biochemistry, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to us. We can have a discussion about that, both Xing and I. We are one of our sister programs, the goodness gracious, Basic Energy Sciences. They have an entire program that is developed with physical biosciences and goes into using biochemistry and biocatalysis, which might be a better fit for you, but we can suss that out by having a conversation with you about that. So if there's, it would take some conversation, I think, to really, before we would be willing to say no or yes, something like that.
And so then I think that I will ask those of you who are still online, if there are any topics that you would really like us to cover in these FOA, funding opportunity announcement webinars that you don't think that we've been covering, especially if you've been to a few of them, please drop us an email. We would be really interested in hearing it. We are still getting into the habit of doing these. And if you feel that it's valuable, it would be good for us to hear that. Or if you feel there are things that we could do to make it more useful. At this point, I think, Natalie, can I turn it over to you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And
we have one more question, it looks like.
Take your time.
And this is a really great question. So the question is how this relates to the FAIR funding opportunity announcement. And so for those of you who are just sort of getting into or first hearing about some of these funding opportunity announcements, we have in the Office of Science released a number of funding opportunity announcements this year that are meant to really broaden participation in our programs. One of these funding opportunity announcements is called FAIR. And I would say that one of the major differences between the FAIR funding opportunity announcement and the Renew funding opportunity announcement is that FAIR is more focused on enabling institutions and PIs at those institutions to develop a Office of Science, or in this case, say a BER relevant research program moving forward. So we would classify those more as capacity building. And I would say that Renew is focused more strongly on providing sustained training opportunities, training and mentoring opportunities for students, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. So I hope that that answers the question.
Great. I don't see any other questions, but usually when I start talking, they pop up. We dropped, I think, the link in the chat for where the slides and this recording will live. And as we said earlier, it'll be available in about a week's time. If there's no further questions, I think we can end there. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.